the Jets. The Jets were not going to hire him. But then Nick Saban called the Jets. Peyton Manning called the Jets, and they vouched for him. So my thing is, if you go in for an interview, if I'm going to hire someone, to be my coach, and they don't wow me in the interview, and then I got to rely on Peyton Manning to call me, and Nick Saban and a slew of other former NFL players call the Jets organization telling me to hire him, to me, that didn't hold water. I think I like the reasoning hiring an offensive coach, but I don't like Adam Gase. Again, I've seen enough of him in Miami. He put all his faith in Ryan Tannehill. 23-25 as a head coach, you are what your record is.
So was there, and I guess that goes back to the whole retread thing that you had stated earlier. You're not a big fan of the retread. Was there somebody you kind of had in mind then that you were hoping they were going to get as somebody that likes to follow the Jets?
Well, I was hoping for a college coach, to be honest with you. Anytime you could get a college offensive coordinator, everyone wants to cherry pick now. A few years ago, you look at Bill Belichick, and one of the reasons why Bill Belichick coaches don't do well when they go on their own is Bill Belichick doesn't give them free reins. You see other offensive coordinators talking to the media. Bill Belichick has that rule that unless you get permission from him, it's the same thing that Bill Parcells said, you can't talk to the media. So you see other coaching trees from the Rams, Andy Reid. I wanted the Jets to hire Frank Reich 2 years ago, who's now with the Colts, with a former offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles when they won the Super Bowl. I'm so big on Reich. I thought he could have won Coach of the Year last year, taking the Colts to a 10-6 record. So that was someone I wanted. Again, I like the offensive coach as a hire. I think he'll do good things in developing the quarterback, Darno, but I don't think Adam Gase will ever win a Super Bowl. But again, the Jets haven't been to a Super Bowl since 1969, so it's no big loss to me.
All right, so now I understand where your take is. So is this, as a Jets person, is this still under the there's more hope than actuality with your team? Because, man, they seem loaded. I mean, I know it's off season, but Darnold takes that next step. Is the offensive line good enough? That's the big question. I guess I always look at teams' offensive and defensive lines. Is that good enough? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who you got at running back, quarterback, wide receiver. If you can't block, everybody's on their butt.
Well, the offensive line isn't great, but they are good enough. I think Cleveland has a very suspect offensive line, but how do you combat that? What did Cleveland do? Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham Jr. run probably 2 out of the top 5 best slant runners in the NFL, meaning they go 3 yards, they cut in. So if the defense is pressuring you, you take a quick 3-step drop. The Jets have added Le'Veon Bell, who is going to live on the screen pass. So if you have a weak offensive line, you let them rush, you dump it, you let Le'Veon Bell. Listen, I'm going to quote the Matrix Revolution when Keanu Reeves goes into to speak to the guy who created the Matrix, and he says, "Hope, it's your greatest strength and greatest weakness." That's what it's like being a Jet fan. I think the Jets should win 10 games this year. Every year I have hope. Every year. And again, they haven't won since before I was even born. They haven't won since 1969. But yes, I think the Jets are good enough personnel-wise, and I think Darnell, he's only 21, 22 years old. I think he'll be good enough. That division's terrible. Miami's going to stink. Buffalo's not going to be good. So, I think the Jets win 9 or 10 games. Yes, there is hope for this team. And finally, just going back to Gase, look, the final thing I'll say with him is Bill Belichick was 36-44 before in Cleveland and New England before Tom Brady took over. So Bill Belichick was 12 games below 500 before Tom Brady took over the reins in New England, and now Bill Belichick is considered the greatest coach of all time. Maybe Ryan Tannehill, cost Gase games. I know they had Jay Cutler there for a while with him. They didn't really have any running game. So all the pieces are in place, but I was not a fan of the Greg Williams hire. Again, Greg Williams as a defensive coordinator hasn't led his team in points against in the top 10 since 2010. So I don't think Greg Williams is a great defensive coordinator. But it's a long-winded answer. I could talk about the Jets forever. Your assumption is correct. There is hope. they should win 9 or 10 games this year.
So there you have it. So I just look at that roster and I thought right away, like, just to me, this league's about the quarterback. I like what I saw in Darnold, and so I believe if he takes that next step, I think he can. We've seen it with other teams with quarterbacks that are good enough. They can mask a certain amount of deficiencies on an offense, even with a head coach, if they're good enough. And I think he qualifies as one of those young quarterbacks that, although we haven't seen him do it, we can more than hope. We can almost expect it from Darnold at this point when I look at him. So I think the Jets are in for a pretty fun season. So you might want to get your popcorn ready, Monty. It might be a good one for you.
Or chug a beer.
Well, yeah, that happens too. All right, bud. So we're going to get to your last team that you like to follow, the Packers. So what is your hottest position battle in Packers camp this year? Because there is an awful lot of them. They've already replaced 9 of the opening day starters of the 11 on the defense from last year. So, I mean, there's a lot of change in Green Bay. So what do you got, bud?
Well, I mean, I said this. I think the Packers were the most if you took any team's off-season, I think the Packers were number 1 and the Jets were number 2 in their off-season moves. Quick question for you. We were talking about this earlier today with a bunch of friends of mine. Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith, over-under on sacks this year combined, 18. What would you say?
I would say under.
Under.
I would say under because I believe one of my things post-draft when we did our bold predictions going in, right, was that I believe that actually Rashawn Gary was going to lead this team overall in sacks with between 12 to 15 and be a top 3 participant for Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think the fact that it's been very popular lately, Monty. They've been starting to report because they're seeing it now, showing it, getting closer to season. They're playing the 1-4-6 defense with just a nose tackle down and everybody else is standing up. I said that's what their defensive bases were going to be because if you look back to even Pettine's Jets days, they did a lot of that. It was called the Psycho package, and it was very popular. It went away, but you have to have the right personnel. They do. And therefore, that gives a lot of interchangeable pieces. And I think the only reason I'm saying Zadarius is under is because I don't think he's going to be on the edge as much as everybody thinks. I think he's there to start on the edge, take pressure off of Rashawn Gary so he can get comfortable and develop because he needs to learn pass rush moves at this level, obviously. And he basically played a 6 technique down in college with his hand in the dirt. Now he's playing outside linebacker. So he's got some things to learn.
Did you see right before you called, I was just scrolling down my Twitter feed, and they said that Rashawn Gary was taken off the field. Did you see that?
Yeah, that was the second time he got off the field, and I don't know. I don't think it's anything concerning. That turf down there up there sucks so bad that they didn't even play. Either side didn't start. They pulled starters at the last minute, on Green Bay. So I think it's this whole, oh, you're hurt, the field sucks, we're getting you off of here kind of thing. I think it's a little more overblown, honestly. But, yeah, I mean, back to that. That's all. I just see that, I guess, as the reason why I would say under there is because I really believe that Gary will take over on that edge, and I think he's just an athletic freak that a lot of people don't realize what we got at 12. He's just going to take a little time to get comfortable as an outside linebacker.
No, I love him. I think Darnell Savage is going to be a huge playmaker. But going back to your question, I'm looking at the offensive side right now. Darius Shepard out of North Dakota State going into this game. He had 4 catches for 25 yards, 2 TDs, also returned a couple of punts. I also like Alan Lazard. He had 4 catches for 90 yards. And I know he's had some concussion problems, but when they drafted tight end Jay Sternberger, 6'4", 250 out of Texas A&M, I mean, he averaged 17.3 yards per catch and had 10 touchdowns. 73 point yards per catch is wide receiver-like numbers. And defensively, real quickly, I don't know what you feel about him, but Curtis Bolton out of Oklahoma, he's been playing pretty well for them in the preseason games.
You know what I like about him? He's basically a safety that put on some weight to play linebacker, and he hits like a truck. I think he is definitely, solidified a spot at least to make the initial 53 because of the injury right now and his special teams ability. But He's a player that flashes on your screen a lot. He's really fun to watch, Monty. He's been a preseason standout to me, just as entertaining during the games, because there's not a whole lot. I mean, really, there's not a whole lot other than what us nerdy football people like to watch. But he has really stood out, so I do like him.
You know, it's funny because over the last few years, everyone wants to talk about Alabama. You know, a couple of years ago, people were talking about Florida State and Clemson. But if you look at Oklahoma, what they've done over the past 3 or 4 years, getting guys to the pros, Oklahoma is becoming just an NFL factory. And there aren't guys who are necessarily like the best at their position, but they're just solid guys who fill in. And I hope Bolton I hope he makes the team, because I think he could definitely help them.
Well, yeah, especially like I said, this year, what I'm most excited about, and it's going to sound funny, and it's going to show that I'm a real nerd. Special teams in Green Bay. It has literally been the entire Mike McCarthy era. Special teams did not matter. Okay,
Right.
and I have watched, I don't know how many teams in that 13 years literally change their playoff position, whether they're on the bubble and make it in, or they move themselves up to get a bye because of a fake punt, a fake field goal, just great coverage on a kickoff, and a guy lays a hammer because there's nowhere to go and makes the ball. You just didn't have that, and literally the Green Bay Packers have been playing. They've been racing on 2 legs in a 3-legged race, and it's just been amazing they've been able to keep up. So special teams, to me, he's a part of that, and I think it's an emphasis, and it excites me to see that we're going to have a 3-phase football team finally in Green Bay, because it's been a long time.
Listen, people don't realize how important it is. I remember when Rex Ryan was coaching the Jets, Steve Young went to one of their practices, and Steve Young was saying on the radio show after Rex Ryan was fired, he said, "I would never say this." He goes, I go to New England, I go to winning organizations, and they practice special teams 45 minutes per practice, 30 minutes per practice. They practice the 2-minute drill, a good 30, 45 minutes a day. He goes, when I went to the Jets, and the Jets were always struggling on special teams, he goes, they spent 10 minutes on it. They spent 10 minutes on the 2-minute drill. In practice, and I know this from being a former basketball coach, what you practice translates to the game. And I agree with you. It's going to be nice to see the Packers have all 3 phases prepared and ready to help the team win.
Oh, going off that comment, that can't be more true. And it can even be, I cannot get it, right? And I'm going to go back to my background. There'd be times, Monty, my jiu-jitsu coach, right? He'd be trying to teach me some reversal, some high-end reversal, but we had to modify it because you don't have a gi on when you're in the cage, right? And I couldn't get it. I couldn't get it. I'd be pissed as hell, during our training sessions. And then I'd get in the cage, and that situation would come, and before he could tell me to do it, my body would do it. It never could do it when I would think about it, but people don't give muscle memory enough. When your brain is controlling things, sometimes your brain actually screws it up. But the fact that your body has continually went over and over and over it, the thing that's getting in your way is you thinking. And when live action comes and there's not enough time to think, guess what? Your natural muscle memory just takes over, and it's amazing. So, yes, practicing, even if you're not successful at it, just doing it over and over again you can't imagine the benefits it reaps when it comes to live action.
That's why people like Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady or, when I used to coach, we would always practice 2-minute drills, down one, up one. The coach would call timeout, and I'd be like, guys, we've practiced this a million times. We know every scenario, even though it hasn't happened yet. They don't know what's going to happen. We do. The game slows down for great coaches and great players. Giving you an example, everyone wanted Bill Belichick to call a timeout a few years ago when Seattle was about to score and run out the clock. Bill Belichick knew from the formation that they were going to throw that little slant. They practiced that a million times during the Super Bowl week and the Friday before, and what happens? New England intercepts it. People say, oh, they're so lucky. They weren't lucky. They prepared a million times for it. As a matter of fact, the defensive back told the guy, he goes, it's coming to you. It's coming to you. They knew the play because they saw it on film and they practiced it, and that's why they won the Super Bowl. Part of the reason. Anyway.
Oh, those were the Twitter trolls out there that were saying it was luck, because it was Brandon Browner that made the comment to Malcolm Butler and said, they're doing this is what we practice, be ready, and you